Are you looking for a faster video? Well, today it's a live stream, and I know you're probably looking for a really nice and tidy, edited down video, but I have ways for you to make it faster. You can click that little gear on the YouTube settings right there on the video and adjust the playback speed, make me sound like a chipmunk, and it'll go a lot faster. You can also look and see if there's timestamps for this project in the description, and if you're on a desktop, you can hover over the time bar at the bottom of the screen and see if it's chunked up into chapters, and then that way you can go directly to the step you're looking for. And lastly, you can also tap on the screen on the right hand side of the video picture or on the left hand side to make the video jump ahead, forward or backward if you're on a mobile device. And you can adjust that amount in your settings so you can have complete control over how much it jumps. So if you are on a desktop, you can use the fast forward or the rewind, and that will make it go faster as well. You can also enable subtitles, and the little CC on the screen will enable closed captioning. That way, if I am a little bit harder to understand with that double playback speed, the subtitles might help you out. All right, well, I know that it's not a nice little edited video, but if you sew with me, we'll get there together and it'll be lots of fun. And now for the live stream. Happy sewing! Hello! Look at that rainbow. How's it going? Happy Thursday. I thought it was Wednesday. I was really excited that something I ordered was going to arrive today. And I was like, oh wait, it's Thursday. It's definitely here. And it wasn't. It says it's at my post office, but that delivery's tomorrow, so I don't understand that. So, and it's a paper screen cover for my iPad. So it's not a big deal, but I'm kind of excited to try it out. So, hey Mullen, hi Lynn, hey Delwyn, hey Terry. Hello Sand Dollar, how's it going? How are you all? So I finally put my quilt together, this rainbow quilt I have had for so long. I've been putting so much pressure on myself to do certain things after the stream, and I was like, why am I doing this? This is something you've wanted finished, so I just sat and sewed this. It was pretty awesome. I mean, I'm not a big fan of quilting myself, though. You want to see the whole thing, too? It's pretty cool. It was a free pattern. It's pretty amazing. And then I used that fabric I showed you guys yesterday on the back. I think it works, and then the binding I'm going to use picks up all these colors, so I'm going to do that today. I'm pretty excited. I'm not very much a quilter, right? But I'm trying. So, have you, Nikki? That's awesome. I feel like, no problem, Lynn, no problem. I wish I could get rid of the little sliver that's here, and then the little, oh, I did, but then it's crooked. Struggles, man. Struggles. You would think it'd be a perfect rectangle, and it's not. I think it's like 54 inches square, Terry. Yeah, thanks. I mean, it was really fun to sew. You put it together pretty interestingly because you make just strips. Like you take a jelly roll and make strips into a square, and then you cut the squares and then reassemble them. And I just followed their instructions. Like I used their colors, their fabric, and their layout because it looked really good. And it looked, I was thrilled with the way it looked, so I was like, why not just use what they did? And I'm glad I did, you know. But I've seen some others that use other fabrics that are really cool. I can't remember what it's called, but it was free from Ruby Star Society, because that's the speckly print by Rashida Coleman Hale. So I missed what you said, Sand Dollar. Oh, and look, the binding arrived. Look at all these cute little rolls. Look at this. You guys have to see the whole thing. I'll show you. This isn't all of it, but I brought up one package of each. Oh, look at that. Yay! And then there's like 2 more. There's 2 more right here. So I'm pretty excited. So you use a die cutting system. So I actually have a question about that, Sand Dollar. Do you use like a Cricut type of thing? There's someone in the office here. He has this idea for a some sort of wall thing, and he was asking if I knew how to get lots of perfect squares, and I was like, well, I mean, you know, how perfect do they need to be? But I would use a die cutter. We used to have a die cutter at one of the places I worked, and another place I worked, we used to contract out the die cutting. And I don't know how easy that is to do nowadays. And I forgot to ask the bias people if they do die cutting. Yeah. So I think that's a great idea. So it's a Sizzix. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's not applique, that's just seam, so it's really, really easy. I think the hard thing with that is that once you make your squares and you cut them diagonally, you've just created all this bias and all these open edges of seams, right? Because you just, you know, cut right through the middle of the seam. So you just have to kind of like get on it and get it back together. And that worked out. And then there was a couple spots where I kind of was like, oh yeah, I didn't match that too well. And I just went back and fixed it. The bias does make it a little bit easier to do that and harder to do that. And then it behaved pretty good, even though I could tell a little bit like where some junctures where the bias was a little bit like stretching it. So, but then when I quilted it, that kind of all calmed down. And I just did like a 2-inch wide quilt and it's not perfect. So anyway, all right, well, we're here today because we're sewing the Mercer top and we're making the sleeveless version here. And I'm going to use French seams. I'm not going to use my serger at all. You could use your serger, of course. You would really only need it on the shoulder seams, side seams, and center back seam, and the facing edge. That's all you'd need your serger for anyway. Hey, Sydney, how's it going? The AccuQuilt system is great. That's awesome, Dolan. Yeah. Yeah, like I like dabbling in quilting because I've tricked myself into thinking that it's a mindless way to sew. It's like the furthest thing from that for me. I should just sew jeans and shirts. Like that's mindless for me. But it is a way to use fabrics that I really love that I can't use in a garment. How many of us buy quilting cotton and we're like, yeah, that didn't work. I can't make a blouse out of that. So, all right. So I agitated all this fabric in water. Oh, it's a little overexposed. I'll tone that down. And then I just ironed it dry to get as much of the shrinkage out as possible since I didn't have enough for the binding. So I'm just using this. And let's bring it down a little bit, the brightness. I usually always have to do a lot of brightness, but because there's a lot of indirect light with the clouds today, I'm going to tone it down a little bit. You can see there's a little bit of a texture. Yeah, you can kind of see that a little better now. So there we go. All right, so I think our first step, so let's see, I have all those pieces. I have those pieces. I interfaced my facing, my back facing and my front facing using the fusible woven. I think that's the only thing I did off camera. And I shrank down my binding. I have plenty of this. I didn't even need that much. And then my binding arrived, so I would have had to still wash it though. So let's see. So we're going to stay stitch the neckline. I'm going to try and follow the directions in the order that they're given in the. I can talk. I promise I can talk. I'm going to try and follow the directions in the order that they are. So, all right. So there's a 5/8 inch seam allowance. We're going to trim that down in a few places. what's my stitch length at? I was kind of fiddling with it when I quilted yesterday. So I'm just going to put in a stay stitch here. This fabric, personally, I think is stable enough that I wouldn't even need to do that. But I'm going to do it just as a reminder, just in case you're using something like a linen or something a little more loosey-goosey. Oof, these big seam allowances. So I'm just going to put it at about 1/2 inch. What did we sew recently? And I was like, yeah, that could have used a stay stitch. Right, Sydney? I feel like ever since I got my teeth cleaned, I feel like my mouth feels funny. You know what I mean? Maybe you don't know what I mean. Hi, Sarah. Drive safe. You can listen to us, the dulcet sounds of my sewing machine. Yeah, I'm excited about using that paper thingy on my screen. The one I got is called Paper-like, so we'll see how it is. I'll let you guys know. So I know there's a few of you who use Procreate and an iPad, and I'm just a noob, so I'm just kind of getting the hang of it. So, good morning, Libby. How's it going? Did you post pictures of your jacket? Because I didn't see them, but I did see the login started by Terry. That's so exciting. You got a lot done, Terry. Hey, Nancy, how's it going? Hello from California. And hello to Oklahoma. Yeah, right, Nikki? Yeah. All right, back seam. So I kind of want to consult the pattern piece and make sure that I go to the spot indicated. I kept these out. I almost put them away, and I was like, you know, Sarah, every time you put those out, or put those away, you need it. I'm already hungry, too. I don't know why. Oh, okay. It's just that little notch. I notched that. Right there. Cool. All right. So we're going to do a French seam here. And I am a little curious about doing that juncture with a French seam, but you know me. Bring it on. Oh, okay, Libby. I was kind of looking around there, and then I saw like sometimes all of a sudden I'll see all these posts that says I've never seen, and I'm like, what the heck? I can't believe I didn't say anything on that. And then I go to say something, even though it's from April, and it does show that I've commented. So I don't know. That's awesome, Terry. So I feel like it's the rain we're getting here in California is all because of me. I want to take full credit for all the rain we're getting, and it's because I mailed off my raincoat to Hearts Fabric on the day the rain started. So yeah, you can thank me. And so today I was like, okay, my daughter stole my rain boots. And I sent my raincoat off to Hearts, so what am I going to do? And so I took Michael's utility jacket because, you know, he won't notice it's gone, right? And then I put a hat on. I need to waterproof one of my Sorrento bucket hats. Although I feel like that's not loose enough that sometimes it might mash my hair weird, like make my bangs do something funny. Because the humidity and my hair love each other. Oh, that's awesome, Libby. Like you're that far. I love that when I get, like I felt that way with the My Blazer. I was like, all right, I can actually put this part of this project away. You wash your car when we need rain, That is, thank you for doing that. That is a kind service of you. Thank you, Libby. Because she doesn't need them now, Terry. Yeah, Malin, I'll let you know. That's what I was thinking. So the one I got, yeah, I got a matte one, and I saw it on this, by the way, there's this whole genre of YouTube that is so amazing. And it's note-taking. Like, that's all it is. You watch them take notes in an iPad, and they actually, like, their notes look like works of art. They're, like, illustrated, and they can actually, their penmanship writing in their iPad is incredible. Like I was like, they make it look so easy. This is what I wish. I wish there was a disclaimer at the bottom of the screen. If it looks like I'm making it look easy, it's not. You know? Yeah, so I'm assuming, Terry, that's because she finished. Yeah, exactly. So, so she did a review of them, and she was like, it won't wear down your pencil tip. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing. So I was kind of glad to see it. I can't remember what her YouTube thing was. I started watching them because they were so satisfying, and I was like, oh gosh, all my YouTube's going to be this. So, all right, I'm going to go to the iron. But I'm kind of hoping, you know, like, it'll feel a little less slippery. And I get ads in my my Instagram stories for those pin tips, and I don't know anything about those, and if I need one. And I can always take this off if I don't like it. That's what I figured. You know, for $35, I'm willing to give it a try if it kind of helps me a little bit. All right, so we're just doing a French seam on this back here. And what I did up here is I just stopped at the notch right there because we have this little opening. And for my French seam, I just clipped up to that notch, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sew again. See that? There's my little notch. I'm going to sew again inside here, and so then I'll be on the seam line. Doing a French seam shouldn't affect this, and if it does, we'll figure out how to get around it. How you like that? Why do I feel hungry? All right. What's that noise? All right, so remember there's 5/8" seam allowance, so you have, you know, plenty to do a French seam. I trimmed that first one. I'm gonna release some of the pressure on my presser foot. It still feels like my stitches are really tiny. Maybe that's what it is. I'm gonna put this pressure down. No, we'll put the pressure back up. Why does this feel so, it might be the fabric. I mean, it's sewing nicely. It just felt like it was pushing down really, really hard, like it was grinding almost. All right, so then I'm not gonna clip too far in there. I'm just gonna leave it like that. All right, and then our next thing is the facing. We're gonna do the shoulders. And because I'm not using my serger, I'm just gonna hem the edge. There it is. With some, you know, what is this from? I was just, oh, this is the cashmerette stuff. Sewing machine snacks. Oh my gosh. You know what? I do have those. But, you know, I'm not going to eat on camera. It's just definitely one of my things. What I need to get rid of is my gaming chair snacks. I did get rid of storing them there. That was a really smart idea. You know. All right, let's put my shoulders together. I really love that this fabric, that the rectangles go horizontal. Why are my shoulders not matching up quite right? I must have not cut them out very well. I don't really need to finish this edge between the inner facing being fused on there and it being against the wrong side of the shirt. Like it's going to be kind of enclosed a little bit. I'm not too worried about it. All right, so I'm going to turn under this long edge. I think I want to do that here too. Pretty sure. So I'm kind of known for not finishing edges like this sometimes. I am going to, but sometimes I don't. And it really doesn't have, it's not a big deal. Like on the facing, I would turn it under so it looks nice, you know. I'm just going to trim off a little bit of the excess interfacing that I have here, just from like me not cutting it perfectly. And see that transition right here? I could trim that right there, and I'm going to, but you don't have to. You're going to fold it. Or if you were serging it, you could just serge it right off. I like being particular sometimes. Definitely have like a little bump right there, but we'll smooth that out when we sew it to the neckline. Hey Donna, oh, I'm so glad you can make it. Let's see. So turn into this curve, I'm wondering maybe if I want to, we're going to put a stay stitch. I'm gonna put one about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge. So hemming it makes your facing a little bit narrower. So you don't want to hem too much. You could also bind the edge if the garment can take that kind of thickness around the edge of the facing. It might show through the garment though, so be careful where you add that. All right, so I'm going to clip into this curve. There's no particular reason why I'm not using my serger. I just sometimes like to not use my serger. Hey Beverly, how's it going? And I think it's great if you don't have one, or maybe you're just like, I don't really feel like getting it out, or maybe you use it all the time, but you don't have the color thread for your particular project. I think it's great occasionally to not use your serger, you know? Why not? Where am I going? There we go. I'm going to the iron now. That little line's going to make it a little easier for me to turn it under. That's why I did it. This part's the easy part. Like you would think that little inside curve would be hard. This outer curve, this is going to be the harder part. And you could draw up the threads, you know, kind of tighten it if you really wanted to make sure you're getting a nice smooth curve. It's a facing. I'm not too worried about it. I don't want it to take forever. I also don't want to burn the heck out of my hands, which I am. Maybe I'll try and pre-fold a little bit. My wool mat is like nice and warm. Kind of helps. Look at that. Ooh, I like that. Oh, well then I ruined it. You can clip this outer, the outer curve right here, and then what'll happen is, you know, these little edges, because there's extra fabric there. Let me really awkwardly clip this so you can see. Then they'll fold over each other. So you can clip the outer curve too. Like I said, it's a facing. I'm not too worried about it. You know? Let's kind of pre-fold it a little bit. The wool mat really holds the humid heat. Not that I'm advertising them, but it does help a little bit. My ironing board at home needs a new cover so bad it's starting to like get a little tear in it. And I feel like I'm ironing directly onto metal. You know what I mean? It's so threadbare. I'm kind of embarrassed to say that I like ironing. I feel like that's kind of fighting words in the sewing community. You know what I mean? Like I feel like if I say that, it's the equivalent of being like if a new sewist sees someone who's been doing something for a long time, they're like, well, it's easy for you. I feel like it's that. I feel like it's that kind of thing where it's like, well, yeah, it's easy for you to say you like ironing, you know. You know what I mean? I don't know. Oh, cool, Beverly. Yeah, could I use bias instead of the facing? Oh, you mean like to finish the neckline? You could. You would have to do it in 2 parts because you'd have to do the little slit and then you'd have to do the neck. But yeah, you could. Yeah, I know, Sydney. I really need to do that. There's so many cute covers. In fact, I think that's what I have. I think I have a cute cover. I think I want to do this from the right side. You know? I feel like I could also get this a little lower down. Let's zoom. This is where I wonder if those little Elgato Stream Decks would be faster. How's that? It's a little better. So I know you guys like it when my camera's, like my face is right here. But isn't it weird with the machine? Wouldn't you rather it be like right here? Or do you guys not care at all about that? I made I've made a few ironing board covers, and the last one I made, and I actually have made a couple where it did not go well. Like it didn't turn out nice, and it's because I was kind of winging it, and I was like, this will be so easy. And so I was like, let's just cut all these corners because who needs those? And it didn't turn out great, right? So I'm a little hesitant to make one because I think like not being able to sew an ironing board cover is probably something that I should, like, you know, hold up one of those cards that says, I know how to put a zipper fly in, but I can't even sew an ironing board cover, you know? Like the meta of it being a sewing related item and I'm not able to pull it off is not lost on me, you know? So it is like, it's the, oh, okay, so so you're saying you like it like that? All right, Malin, have a good one. Hi, Nancy, how's it going? It's the Wild West out there. Sydney has a lot of exclamation points today. I'm really liking the enthusiasm. Are you having a good week, Sydney? All right, so there we go. There's my little facing. What's next? Button loop. Oh. Yeah, so there's a little, I haven't done one of these in years. There's a little button loop. Button and button loop. So I made myself, I have these buttons that would be absolutely perfect, but I have 5 of them. And so I don't want to take one just for this. So I made myself pick one of my single buttons that I had in my stash. And I thought this is actually kind of appropriate for like an 80s theme. It's like a pearl button, you know? Oh, and you know what? I really shouldn't untape. I taped it to the side of my box so I wouldn't lose it, which means now I'll probably lose it. Let's tape it back on there. I don't really need this till the very end. Oh boy, I don't know if that's going to stay. All right, so let's get my center back out. And it says, oh, there's the circle. I see it now. You know, I feel like, let's see, if I'm putting this on, I'm right-handed, and I think that, yeah, I would want the button loop on this side. So let's mark this on the right side. Yeah, not the wrong side. Do you not have someone who carries the art gallery line, Delwyn? That's awesome, Sydney. Good for you. That's a lot of like potentially great things, right? Either works for you, Nikki. I like your Wild West comment though. You added new heat resist. Oh, that's awesome, Lynn. It would be fun to do like a series, not a series, but like maybe a theme of where, because I still need to make a sewing ham and then an ironing board cover. Maybe I could do those in one, you know. All right, so it says to put my raw edges up to the circle, but I think that maybe it means raw edges to the, let me read it. Let me read it. I was a little out of it when I was reading this. Match the raw edges with the cut edges of the back at circle marking. Yeah, okay. Forming a loop on one side of your garment based in place. And you want this on the right side. That's a little loop. Maybe I should make sure that that's going to work for my button. It's pretty, I'm just using mask elastic. I mean, that'll stretch over that. Oof, fiddly, fiddly. I'm not very dexterous anymore, you know? I'm going to make it a little bigger. I'm also going to sew it a little bit in from the seam allowance. There we go. That way my seam allowance, when I do the seam allowance, it'll actually enclose it. Yeah. Facing to the blouse. Oh, I need to do my shoulders. I didn't do those yet. Sydney. That is a dilemma. What about reading a good book? Hi, April. How do I keep my cut pieces so clean? I don't see any serging. What do you mean? Oh, actually, I'm doing French seams today, if that's what you mean. My cut pieces, I think that is worded differently than what I'm thinking what you mean. So, because I don't think you mean like, how do I keep my cut pieces of fabric clean, right? I mean, I keep them in a bin, you know. So I know that, I don't think that's what you mean. That's awesome, Sydney. Good luck with that. That sounds great. You deserve it. I do a lot of sewing without. Oh, is that what oh, that's a good, maybe that's what it is. Do you mean why they're not fraying? This fabric's not going to fray. In fact, I could probably not use French seams or a serger on this fabric. It's tightly woven enough and it's just a cotton. You're now subjecting the whole chat to my spiel that they probably do not want to hear again. So, but my spiel is that sergers are kind of a relatively new invention. They're not really that necessary, and they were invented really for sewing knits, so you can get a stretchy seam. And then there's the added side benefit of them, you know, finishing wovens and making a nice clean edge, and it makes the sewing look so nice inside. I totally get that, you know. But for a long time, I hardly ever serged things on camera. And that was a combination of reasons. I'm not against them. I have one and I love it. And I use it a lot. So, yeah. And I have a whole video on do you really need a serger? And it talks about, and I show garments that I've sewn without a serger, like a dress, a knit top, a woven dress, a knit top, and something else. What was the other thing? And I show, like I've been wearing those things, like one of them for years, and I show what it looks like on the inside and how it really doesn't fray and how there's strategic things you can do to kind of prevent it, but I don't know if that's what you mean. That's awesome. Oh, no thready bits hanging off. Yeah, it's the type of fabric. Yeah, exactly. I didn't do anything to it. So you can see there's a little bit, but it's very manageable. Like, I definitely sew fabrics that aren't, you know, and they're just kind of getting away from me, like linens and things like that. But yeah, this is the art gallery, you know, they're cotton, and they sell this as a quilting cotton, but it is garment quality for sure. It's tighter woven. It's got a little bit more drape. It's lighter weight than a quilting cotton. Quilting cotton's kind of scratchy and heavy. Oh yeah, and I don't use pinking shears ever. I have a pinking rotary blade, but I never use it. It's really rare. I use it to do weird things with it, not even sewing related sometimes. All right, so we're gonna do the facing to the blouse. I'm gonna put this right sides together. And I'm gonna press my shoulder seams towards the back, but my facing seam is open. Just to reduce the bulk, you know. I'll put a couple pins in today. Me too, Amy. How are you doing? I do feel like a long time ago, I would have been like, French seams, like, geez Louise, what a way to be a tryhard. You know what I mean? Or I would just think like, oh, that's just so much work. You're sewing it double. You are sewing it double. There's not a lot of seams in this garment, so I think it's a really good opportunity to use them. I will say the garments I have that are sewn with French seams, I like so much better than the ones that are serged. And I use my serger. I'm not against it at all, but I like the garment feels better. It feels better. The inside feels better. And I find that home sergers just don't do as good a job as industrial ones. You can snag the little serging stitch. It's just, I don't know. Why is that not lining up well? Look at that. What the heck? Yeah, I think let's see. I'll probably trim that to the facing. Let's make sure it's all like laying flat. And maybe the ironing of the inner facing kind of did something there. I mean, that one I got better here, huh? I'm just looking at a little bit there. See, look at that's where that little jog is. So yeah, we'll smooth that out. And that's actually that little jog there too. So just right there, I'm gonna kind of go down a little bit. It's only like a fat 1/4 of an inch, right? It's not a big deal. So, yep, exactly, Sydney. Yeah. Yeah, that takes a little bit longer. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. The quilting cotton is a little bit more open of a weave, and the thread I think that they use to weave it is heavier. We're talking like micro amounts. But yeah, you're gonna notice the threads more because they're bigger, and it is a little bit, yeah. So in that video, I sewed a dress on the bias and I used quilting cotton. And it's like the one time you can use quilting cotton in clothing is if you put it on the bias. I actually thought that this top would have been kind of cute on the bias. I think it would be really nice. Oh, I like that idea, Nancy. That's great. All right, so we're going to sew this, and we just stop at this circle down here, but I'm kind of surprised we don't sew this together like that to the notch. You know, because if I just sew to here and then it'll be like this, it'll be separate. I kind of want to, I'm going to sew that to the, I'm going to sew the bottom of this facing together. She says I can do mods. I'm just looking at the seam allowance there. So yeah, like right there. I'm going to sew that 1/2 inch up. We'll see. Oh, I didn't hem this side. Oh, that's funny. I remember thinking I got such a nice continuous stitch right there, and I didn't remember doing it on this side. That's funny. I didn't do it on this side. That's why. Let's hem this up. I may feel differently about doing this now. Now I don't have really much for a seam. All right, I'm just going to try it the way it's written. All right, so here's my tip. Anytime you're doing a circle like this, lift this side up and move it over, because it's just easier to sew. All right. I really don't have much. Maybe hemming that wasn't a good idea. I need a little bit more fabric there. Okay, I have my button elastic. Just putting my little threads that are attaching it to the raw edge. There's a little gentle shape on that bag. Oh, I knew I was going to run out of thread. I have that. Oh, she did. That's awesome. And by any chance, was your aunt like sewing and like it was her generation, there wasn't a lot of sergers? Like I think my mom, if she were sewing again, she wouldn't even consider getting a serger. And my mom knows how to sew, but it's not her hobby. You know, like I feel like she, and she actually could do a really good job. Like she would see me just fully, you know, upset in high school that I couldn't wear a sleeveless dress because my bust was so big. And I remember one year she was determined and she made me a homecoming dress that was strapless, that I could wear. True love, man. True love. And she made me a little clear, I was gonna say clear, a translucent little shawl to wear over it just in case I was feeling, you know, self-conscious, and I fully wore that thing. But I don't think she would even consider a serger if she were sewing. And it's not because she, and I mean that in the way like she would be like, oh, I'd never get a serger. She's not that way. It wouldn't occur to her to think of getting a serger, I don't think. So. Oh, interesting, April. What did Nancy's? Oh yeah, the pinking shirt thing. Yeah, exactly. All right, so I'm going to follow the edge of my facing here. Yeah, you know, April, I've talked about how there's a lot of folks that work in factories that they do one step and they don't get the opportunity to do the garment from start to finish. So a lot of them don't even know how to, if they came to sewing via the factory, they don't even know how to put a garment together. And it's not a lack of skill or anything. It's just that you did a step, you know? You did the step you were trained to do. You operated a machine. And I think that's so incredible, you know? That anyone can sit down and sew. Just got to be taught to do the thing you need to do. All right, so I want to make sure the opening on my backs, they're even. I'm going to double check those, but I'm going to keep sewing all the way around the perimeter here. So make sure you get this little shape here. It's a little gentle, you know, curve. So I think I'm gonna have to do some lining up there, and I may have to take out my hem because look at that, it just goes right to the bottom. Let's see if my back facing matches at the opening before I trim anything. This is going to be a problem, I think. We'll see, though. That's pretty good. I'm kind of surprised. It felt really different. All right. Let's turn this. I'm going to trim down the seam allowance quite a bit. I'm going to trim down to 1/4 inch. Make sure you don't cut anything else. You know what I mean, jelly beans? So yeah, just to clarify, I did trim down my front neck a little bit because if you have a facing and you forced that raw edge to line up when it doesn't, you'd get kind of a ruffling of your facing on the inside. Oh, interesting, Amy. So she got into the long arm quilting. So that's pretty techy. Yeah. Yeah, me too, Terry. Yeah, right. Hi, Elena. Aw. She was a home ec teacher and she graduated in 1961. That is pretty cool. Right on, crayon. Is that a saying? I haven't heard that. All right, let's turn this right side out. Oh, wait, I'm going to clip my curve. Sorry. I'm reading chat. Okay, that's my seam, right? Make sure you don't mistake the one. Oh, I have a tuck right there. We'll fix that. I felt something there, and you know what I think it is? It's because I didn't press my shoulder seams, because I was talking in chat, I was answering a question. I didn't want to leave to go to the iron, and so I didn't iron my shoulder seams when I did the French seam there, and I think that's why I got that tuck. Let's trim this one a little more even. Not a big deal. Gets me a little closer there. Where's that tuck at? It was on the, here it is, right here. See that? And pull out a good bit around it. Make sure we get it nice and smooth. There we go. Now you can just smooth that out. All right. I'm going to leave it funky in there because I like that little secret. All right, now we're going to turn it right side out, and I'm going to look at this down here, and we're going to press it. We're getting it all good. Yeah, that's so true, Terry. Hi, Barbara. How's it going? Yeah, I agree with you, Terry. I feel like if you have someone who was creative in your life and kind of instrumental in supporting you, it's almost like they were the one who understood you. You know. Oh, the old green Kenmore. Yeah, that's the machine I used to give to people all the time. Oh, I'm sorry, April. Gosh, she's so tiny. Barbie dresses. Wow, what a hero. That was hard sewing. That's so incredible. You had two amazing sewists in your life. All right, so I'm just trying to get that point good. Not too thrilled with that. My little button loop isn't right at the top of the neck. But it doesn't bug me, because I don't like getting these against this either. Sometimes the thickness of this can really mess around with this seam up here. All right, let's look at what's going on down here too. We're not even to the fun bit of the sleeves, you know. All right, so I think that's going to be okay. And we'll stitch across the bottom maybe. All right, let's go iron. Ironing makes everything better. Yes, I know those little metal snaps. Oh my gosh. Those and those little tiny hooks and eyes, I feel like those right there are enough to make people not want to sew. I really believe that because those were the kinds of things that really drove me crazy when I was learning to sew. And when they would say I had to use like a hook and an eye, I would be like, I don't want to do that. Those things are so hard. All right. I'm going to iron it from this side first, but I'll probably have to touch it up on the right side too. Let's iron this shoulder seam now that we're here. All right. If you have trouble getting this little seam to behave, one thing you can do is you can iron it from, it doesn't matter which way you press that seam allowance. To iron it and press it just one direction, just like you're sewing a French seam. And then when you go to iron it on the edge, it's gonna more likely behave and do what you want because that seam allowance has been pressed on the inside. It helps a lot. But make sure the curve is clipped all the way up to the seam line. It's a little fiddly. Like I don't have a ironing board here that lets me put it around the, you know, that tapered part. And that would help for something like this because it could be hanging off the ironing board. And this little seam allowance here, I'm going to do just that. I'm going to press it one way. I didn't trim that one yet. I might not. And then pull this all out. I have this one thread here. It's really bugging me. Yeah, I think I would like that this seam allowance down here to be a little longer, and I would probably sew straight up and then sew it more like a placket. So this right here, this French seam, I'm gonna clip to, I didn't finish clipping, I only clipped part of it. I'm gonna clip it all the way to the seam line, so now it kind of moves back and forth easily, and I can just press it one direction. So whoever asked about if you could just do binding instead, so you see what I mean. You could just sew the binding in this slit, just like you do on a sleeve placket. And I have a video on how to sew binding like this on a sleeve placket. And then you would go around your neck. So I would absolutely do the placket first, sew your binding on, and then you would sew it just like you do a placket, where you would turn back one side and everything, and you'd have like a tiny little overlap almost. And then, because if you wanted to bind this and it be pressed flat to the garment, that's a little trickier because you're not going to be able to turn around this corner. You're not going to do your binding and then press it flat and stitch it down. It's going to have to be sticking out, and so then that means you would fold it over and overlap it like a sleeve placket. And then you would do your neck, and then you'd have to figure out a way to nicely finish your edge here, but you could just leave a tie, like leave your binding hanging off and tie it shut here and not even do the button closure. So there you go. Oh, let's look at it from this side. The true test. Sorry, I can't see chat. I didn't bring my phone over here. And my computer's behind me. go. Yeah, so this little thing right here, I'm gonna push that, and I think I'm gonna just sew straight across like a little bar tack. You absolutely want that facing on the inside. I feel like that just made it worse, but I'll iron it better when we're closer to being done. All right. Aw, that's so sweet, Amy. Wow, really? Like a buttonhole stitch on her machine, Terry? I've done that before, but it didn't look great. Yeah, I totally get that, April. Were you here yesterday, Barbara? Zip zap instead of set French seam. What's that, Stephanie? What's zip zap? Oh, cool, Nikki. Yay, Sarah. Oh, cool, you're printing out the ideal. That's a lot of pages, sorry. But you guys made me do it. Yeah, the sleeve boards are nice. Oh, you missed yesterday. Okay, so, in fact, I have it right here, Barbara. This camera. So I cut it in quilting cotton and just sewed the shoulders and side seams and center back. That's it. All right, so you see I have this little bit of, see it? You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. This little right here, right? So this is my idea. I think, so this is unhemmed. It's just hanging on my dress form. It's a straight size 14. And I wanted to see how it was going to act back here because I have such a bad problem with things pooling here and getting kind of weirdly stuck. And this doesn't do that. It hangs nice off the shoulders for me. This right here was a little bit concerning, but this is my thinking. I feel like there's so much construction in this armhole, and a lot of armholes with sleeves, if you took the sleeve off and saw it like this, it would do this. It doesn't mean that that's how you would want it to fit you, but you don't notice it, and it kind of blends in with everything, right? So yeah, if you were going to go through, like if you were using a special fabric or a special pattern, or you really wanted something to fit you well, you would absolutely get rid of that in some garments. But in this, I think that my idea is that because we have this little underarm, it's not a gusset, it just kind of completes the side seam underarm here, and we have this flange, all of that right there plus the binding, that's going to bind that up a bit in a good way. So that's my idea, is that if you wanted something still to be not too fussy to fix or do some alterations to, I think it's worth a try. And so we're going to see the difference. This is my challenge with it. Because that could be a problem for me, but I think with the way this is sewn, it's not going to be. So zip zap instead of French seam stitch. I still don't understand what that means. I like French seams. I like French seams. You got to finish it somehow, right? All right, so now we're getting to the fun stuff. Okay, we're going to do the phalanges. That reminds me of Phoebe from Friends. Wasn't her like fake name something phalange? All right, so let's be really keen. Oh, zigzag, Stephanie. Yeah, Mafia, that's probably it. Yeah, zigzag. Yeah, you can totally zigzag instead of French seam. Regina Phalange. Yeah. Oh, man. Okay. I'm going to notch these so I know what's the front and what's the back. And so I'm just going to notch the back with a double notch. Yeah, you can zigzag for sure, or overlock. Yeah. I just thought since there's only the shoulders, center, back, and side seams, I would do the French seam. It's particularly nice when you don't have a whole lot of it to do, right? So I'm just going to put a double notch here. So I know that that's the back. Okay, so we have 2 backs. Two fronts. And we're being methodical, right? We are being methodical. We worked so hard to get these out of the fabric. So we're going to do the shoulder seams. One. Two. Phoebe Buffet. I mean, that was quite a name already, right? Yes, you gotta be methodical. You want to make sure you get your fronts to your fronts and your backs to your backs, right? I cut one of mine off. I think I don't know which one it is, but I'm lining it up at what I think is the armhole seam, and then I'll just trim it off the outer edge. All right, so we're gonna press all these seams open. Did you, Barbara? Phoebe? That's your little dog is Phoebe? I've seen your little dog. I love that. She was kind of genius in that, the Lisa Kudrow. Let's see. Okay. Trying to keep a left and a right together. Just so it's less to sort out at the machine, right? I think you could get really lost in these pattern pieces and lose track. So definitely mark your fronts and backs somehow. All right, so now we have our 2. She's kind of weird like Phoebe. All right, so we're gonna put these right sides together. I do too. I really like zip zap. It sounds so speedy. We should zip zap the rick rack. It reminds me of a Fortnite emote. She says bim bam boom. And I don't know what she's saying because it's a French song. Speaking of French, all of a sudden I started getting all these French emails in French lately. I don't know why. Yeah, oh yeah, smelly cat. Smelly cat. Oh yeah, I still sing that. Oops, I'm a little bit off there. Come on, there we go. This is one thing. I love this fabric because it's, so versatile being a, quilting cotton or apparel, which is, it's kind of trying to do a lot in 2 different worlds. But it still has that tackiness of a quilting cotton. Exactly. I watch that show, like, you know, like every week. And I remember when I met Michael, he was not a TV watcher. And, you know, we didn't have cable. Like, it came in really, like, staticky and stuff. But I'd be like, yeah, this show's really funny. And then he'd be like, okay, fine. And he'd watch it with me. And then he'd be laughing and he'd be so mad that he found it funny. He wouldn't be so mad, but I could tell he would be like, yeah, it's funny. You know? All right, I'm going to check in with the instructions, make sure I'm on track. Where are they? Oh, here they are. It's not your fault. Yep. All right. Did I just do the wrong edge? Oh, no. That's just showing... With right sides and matching notches and shoulders and pin flange piece right together along the single notched edge. Stitch resting flat, then press seam open and trim. Then turn flange wrong sides and press flat base 3 main. Wait. I think I did just do this wrong. Ooh, I think I just did this wrong. Whoops. The single notched edge, like neither edge is single notch. Oh, I did. Well, shoot. I had this feeling I should check, and then I was like, that's got to be the outer edge. No, that's not. Now's the time for the thing. See, Terry? I met this group of people when I lived somewhere. They were really into Star Trek Next Generation, and that was my entry. Like, that wasn't my entry into Star Trek because my cousins made me watch it as a kid, like the original. And I watched it, but it was a little stressful for me as a kid. Like, I was kind of young for it, and I'd be like, what are those creatures, you know? And they'd be getting kidnapped and stranded in these terrible situations that you just don't think they can get out of, you know? But as an adult, I really fell in love with Star Trek Next Generation. And I mean, come on, Jean-Luc Picard, right? Nah, I should have checked, Amy. Never assume. The smelly cat's always a good distraction. This is a good illustration of you know, not doing it this way. Hi, Ray. How's it going? Yeah, see, that's how it was for me too, Terry. They took over the TV. I really appreciated the amount of costumes in those shows. You know? Yeah, there's the commands. Drink! There you go, Ray. Let me tell you about the story of why the command for the seam ripper is drink. It's all Nancy's fault. Oh, I could probably take the timer out, right? There you go. So I guess I picked up too long of a section there. All right. This is kind of ruffling up easier than I would think. You know? Can you imagine trying to get that into your armhole the wrong way? It would probably lead to a really interesting shoulder. Because these kind of shapes, when you're talking about like forming some sort of three-dimensional shape on the body, it can kind of be the opposite of what you think it should be. Lint lava, yeah, you know, like that. Like I just threw that on the floor. That's lint lava. The floor is lint lava. So if anything lands on the floor, it's kind of like a, you know, oh shoot, now I got to clean up that thing. All right, so it's the inner curve, not the outer curve, that you want to sew right sides together first. It's also the edge that I double notched, so I started it off wrong. I want the double notch to be on that side so that I can remember which one goes to the back. And is it on this piece or is it on this piece? It's on this piece. And I'm going to put it down here because it's closer to where I'd start the seam. There we go. Isn't your floor lint lava? Really, Amy? Did you, Nancy? How was it? Yeah, my floor is really bad right now, Libby. I keep forgetting to bring in my vacuum. There's a vacuum here, but I feel like, you know, it's like when you're the only person that has long hair in the house. All hair is blamed on you. So. You did? You met Data? Wow. That is part, like, I have this friend that, you've seen her before. She comes to chat sometimes, Kathleen. And she was just like, oh, I don't think I'm nerdy enough for Big Bang Theory. And I was like, okay, I don't know you very well, but you're definitely nerdy enough. I've been around you enough to know. I was like, I just give it a shot. And she was like, okay, it's frightening how much of this I get. I'm like, yeah. No. It's so good that way. And I just love all the cameos by all those folks in that show. Yep, April, that is it. That is exactly it. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Seen it happen lots, and it's a bummer too, because they know that you might have blown your rate for the day. Did they let you take it out in your own time, like off work hours? Because we did. We always let people take it, do that kind of stuff in their off time, not on the clock if they wanted. Like they could do it on the clock, but it didn't matter if they were only piece rate, because then they wouldn't get paid. So what they would do is say, can I bring it home or can I stay after? It's hard because some labor laws get in the way of that, but labor laws don't take into account that someone might be like not getting paid then. It's tricky. And Karen tried to be her. You got to sit in the captain's chair? Oh, shoot. Oh, no, Terry. We got to find you a convention to go to quick, Terry. The first time I saw Geordie LaForge on Reading Rainbow, I'm totally spacing his name. It was in my head for a second there, and then I left. It just felt so wrong. Oh, okay. Why were you at a Star Wars convention, Nancy? Is it for you or someone else in your life? Did you say that? A Boston one would probably be huge, too. All right. Where's my back notches that I added? Oh, they were on the side. That's right. Okay, let's add the back notches here. Sorry, guys. All right, resewing this one now. He's watching right now. What's his, did he like, did he watch Discovery? The newer series? LeVar Burton, thank you. When I read that, Learn Burton, I was like, Something in my head was like, wait. And then I realized when you said LeVar, I was like, oh, yeah. Yeah, LeVar Burton. He seems like such a nice guy, you know? Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure, Nancy. Is he really, Libby? You know everything about that. Really, Delvin? That's awesome. I watched this really funny video by accident yesterday because it was on autoplay, and it was Elijah Wood, and it was one of those things where he was kind of like one of those things where you answer all these questions. He had to answer all these questions or look at these things like, oh, did you know that these were the search times that have spiked over the last many years? Do you remember what happened at these spikes? And he'd be like, April, 2015. I don't know. Was it this movie? And they'd be like, no, it's Wilfred or whatever, And he's like, oh yeah, I forgot, But what was I going with this? Oh, the last thing though is one of the last spikes in the thing was when he was looking for turnips in Animal Crossing, and he got to go to someone's island, and she was like, oh my God, Elijah Wood's in my Animal Crossing world. It's kind of funny. I don't watch celebrity stuff at all, and it's funny, I think YouTube just knows I'm a big fan of Lord of the Rings and stuff. All right, so I'm going to trim this outer edge now. So I've sewn this inner curve here. I have this kind of zoomed in, but I'll just raise this up. We'll pull it down again. All right, not the outer curve. I assumed incorrectly. What did that get me? A big old fat date with my seam ripper. We're going to trim down this edge, and I'm going to clip it too. Picard and Discovery, yeah. You ask questions. No way, really, Sarah? That's really funny. I think I get a lot of Elijah Wood stuff because of a lot of the Harry Potter stuff that I've looked at in the past. And, there's this whole thing with he and Daniel Radcliffe being mistaken for one another. So I get a lot of Elijah Wood stuff. It's not funny. All right, I'm trimming. I think she recommends grading the seam allowances here. This fabric's pretty lightweight. I don't really feel the need to grade it. If your fabric's kind of thick, you might consider grading it. And then I would put it so that the shorter edge is the one that would be the on the top seam allowance. So if this was the right side, you know what I mean? Know what I mean, jelly beans? All right, so then we have one, and then now let's trim this one. Oh, the convention was, oh, okay. Deanna Troy. She's definitely one of my least liked characters for some reason. I look at her now and I'm like, why was she always my least liked character? Like she's pretty and so interesting. All the languages she spoke, and she was an empath. That's awesome, Terry. It's so funny. All right, clip, clip, clip. Longest edge ever. Iron. Now every time my iron is near my serger, I think it was Delwyn that was like, I'm really nervous about your iron, or someone. I was like, ugh, I've been nervous about that too. I wonder if we understitch this. I'd like to. I didn't finish the neckline yet too. I was gonna do an understitch. It says to top stitch it, but I think I'm gonna do an understitch because I think that it would look nicer with this fabric for some reason. I like it looking uninterrupted like that. It just looks nice. And then certain fabrics, I just love top stitching. There we go. Did I get this point down here? I don't think I did. Yeah, here we go. Let's get that nice and pointy. So if I kind of biased this one to be the wrong side, so then this one would be the left. And if this is the right, then there we go. I'm kind of just thinking about it so that it looks the nicest pressed one way for a left and a right. You don't have to be as detailed as that if you don't want. Oops. There we go. Were they, Nancy? That's awesome though. What an experience that you got to do that. All right, so let's see. I'm gonna, I would like to understitch this. It just says to trim to 1/8 of an inch, and I did 1/4. Do I have plans for, no. I'm not streaming on Halloween, am I? Please don't tell me I am. I'm not, thank goodness. I'm like, oh no, you're not expecting a costume, are you? All right, so I'm gonna understitch this. You know, it's not like, this doesn't say to do this in the instructions. So maybe it's not the, you know, you're going to see this little bit of stitching along the edge, you know, like underneath. So we'll see if we don't like it on mine, and then that way you don't have to find out the hard way, right? Okay, so I have that one, and then I have that one. All right, so then I want to understitch this side. So I make sure I have a left and a right. I just keep looking for that double notch that I did. You know, I forgot to put on my like this week schedule thing that I'm doing the cutting the ideal bag Saturday. I'm like, no thanks. Right, Beverly? I think so too. I think it's just that the fabric that's making me do it. You know? I mean, it does. It does not look nice. You can't even see that edge. There's the understitching. All right, we're getting to fun stuff. All right, so the next thing is the, we're going to attach it to the shirt, and we're going to attach the armhole pieces. I couldn't read my writing. I was like, oh, did I just do that in the wrong order? But I did fine. And then we're getting really close. Like, it's all going to kind of come together now. So one of the things I didn't do on this neckline is I didn't understitch it, and I would like to do that. It's kind of tricky when your facing doesn't, you know, like you can't get all the way there. So you can just do the best you can. She recommends top stitching it. Oh, I hate it when that happens, when my thread out of my bobbin drawer creeps out. Oh, Ray. Thanks. Appreciate it, appreciate it. Okay, so, and like I said, I'm kind of really liking the clean look of with this fabric with the no stitching showing. So just get as close to this corner as possible. And this is like on any, like if you're understitching a collar or whatever, sometimes you just cannot get all the way in there. So you just do your best. This, I'll probably be able to get further on the other side than this side because I'm going toward it. So we're just make sure we finish this whole area first. Oh shoot, I didn't do my little trick. So now I've got this twisted up bodice. Remember I told you always lift up one side and pull it over? Oh wow, Sarah. Yeah, it's a big pattern. Are you gonna do which one are you like still deciding which one you're gonna do, Sarah? On the ideal bag? I'm gonna print mine at 85% and make the smaller size. I'm thinking about making it a little bit deeper front to back though. All right, almost there. It's this little thread here, here we go. Pull it apart really firm. There we go. All right, now we can do our underarm. Oh, thanks, Enrica. Yeah, well, I'm really glad you do. Thanks for saying hi and stuff. What do you like to sew? You know, I'm thinking I'm going to do a stitch in the ditch on the shoulders. I could do it later to keep my facing on the inside. So I could stitch in the ditch, but you know, honestly, I think this one would benefit from me doing this, like just stitching it in the seam allowance like this. I'm just going to pull it back. Just put a little stitch right there. Like that. Like that, and then it's tethered and you can't see it from the right side. We'll do the same thing on this side. A go-go dress, wow. So, your first foray into garments was stretch purple velvet? All naps are directional. Love it. But were you so happy you finished it? Like, good job. You didn't probably know how ambitious of a project that was. But that's a pretty ambitious project. Just saying. Good job on that. There we go. Full size with flat. Yeah. Oh, neat. Matching duffel. I was thinking about making a matching lunch bag with mine. You know, so sometimes when I'm carrying a little bit of extra lunch stuff that doesn't fit in my bag. All right, this is the front. This is the back. Okay, this is the, okay, so here we go. Oh, this is actually the one I wanted because we want it rashage together. I'm gonna stitch this. That's not where it goes though. I think we stop. We'll read the directions, I promise. You know, that's the thing is like, it's proof that some of those patterns that are so beautiful or so intriguing that that's what draws us in. You were in high school too? Ah, see, there's nothing like beating the can-do attitude of being in high school. That's just too bright. Why aren't you guys complaining? I'm all mad at you. I'm not actually mad. We're going to, it's going to get, yeah, there we go. Oh yeah, that's so much better. Hi, Patty, how's it going? Let me look at the directions for the lining up. Oh, you do go to the edge. Oh, interesting. I thought it stopped short. All right, so there's lots of notches. We like notches. I'm gonna look for this bottom notch, this one here. Yeah, it goes all the way to the edge. So if that goes to the edge and then the seam does that, okay. Then we have the flange. All right, all right, all right. I'm gonna start from my shoulder and then go down and then go the other way. I just want to try one like this first. So let's match my seam allowances really, my seam line there really well. I didn't stay stitch this whole edge together, like baste it together. It's a good idea too, especially because you can see mine is a little bit different. See, it's not lining up, and that's because I understitched it and stuff like that, so. I kind of wish this was a narrower seam allowance. But I usually do. I know. I'm kind of whiny. Where's this? Oh, that's not a notch. Where's this notch at? Oh, there it is. Okay. So make sure you're keeping it lined up on the seam line because it's going to feel like it doesn't want to do that. You know? So you're going to get a little bit of resistance because there's that curve, right? So just like I always say, focus on the 2 inches in front of you or the 4 inches in front of you. Heidi, your teacher must have been like, what the heck? Here's that little thing. Remember I was telling you guys my bad habit? Here's my bad habit. It just cropped up. See that? Can you see that even? See, when I started, this is my bad habit. I think that I'm stitching it really parallel to the edge. And look at that. Meow. So we're going to get rid of this. So a smoother transition, more parallel to the edge there. Bad habit. Do it on underarms all the time. It is, oh no, this is bound. This will be bound. It's not too many layers. You wouldn't French seam this though. There would be a way to just clean finish it though. I thought that might be a little too drastic of a thing to show though. But if you And it's binding is just a little bit more straightforward. But you could actually clean finish this whole armhole without using binding. The sewing steps would be different though. Trust me, I'm intrigued to try it, but I'm not gonna. Yeah, it just becomes kind of mindless for them, huh? Now it's so dark. It's cloudy here, and the clouds are kind of changing a little bit. Oh yeah, no worries, Ray. No worries. All right, so we have this one done. Kind of, you know, we're almost there. We're gonna trim that edge. We're also still gonna bind it. Let's just look at it. See, look at that. Oh wait, let me get rid of this. Whoa. See that? Looks so cute. This fabric's really cute in this. Yeah, no, you guys are used to me shoving a French seamed sleeve down your throats all the time, right? Yes, you can do it, and it's easier. And your guys are like, no. No, you guys are good sports. All right. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start from the shoulder and then go down. So actually, let's do it from this side. I'm kind of curious to see which side is easier to sew from. So this time I'm going to sew from the body side. It'll be easier for me because at least now I can see the shorter layer a little easier. And it is kind of usually a little easier to sew from this side when you're out. Your bottom one is the outer curve, and the top one is your inner curve. And I always just hold the layers separate when I'm doing stuff like this. That way I can kind of move it around and position it. Make sure I'm not shifting that under layer. Where's that? Oh, that's not a. These little rectangles sometimes are giving me an optical illusion of a notch. You're not just lining up your raw edges on this when you're doing two different curves to one another. You're doing the seam line. You're only worried about kind of hitting your landmarks where your notches are and then focusing on your seam line. And then at this point, make sure you have all your fabric edges out. Here, we can even try this from this edge and go up. Not my favorite way to do this because it's kind of hard to see where you're going to start your seam. But in general, this is probably right here. This is going to end. So if I find my 5/8 inch seam from this raw edge and where it hits this finished edge, so that's right there. That right there is how you know where to line up. Boy, shouldn't have turned it that way. Your edge here. Oh my gosh. So I did that kind of backwards. Doing it from this side, it doesn't matter. But like if you were going to try and sew this from this end with your flange on top, what you're going to do is you're going to look for your 5/8 inch seam line on your side seam and your armhole, and then the 5/8 inch away from this raw edge on the flange. That little point's going to touch that intersection, if that makes sense. It is easier. All right, where am I at? We'll just finish from the shoulder down. After all that, I don't want to be doing it completely different. So a lot of times what I'm doing is I'm pulling this, and then I take my finger and I kind of pull the seam, just pull it towards the seam edge, to stack the seams. I'm trying to stack the seams one on top of the other. So I have to pull this, because remember, this top piece is an outer curve. The under piece is an inner curve. So then I pull it like this to exaggerate it, right? And I position that seam right on top of the other seam. You could always chalk them in just to make sure. And then you're looking for where your notches are hitting. Like here's my notch right here. And so I'm kind of like, okay, I need to kind of make sure I'm going to make that. It feels like this top piece is longer right now, but it's not. It's because we're trying to stack that seam. So this is going to ruffle a little bit. It's not too long on the seam line. My words are terrible today. So here's my little notch. Here's a notch, here's a notch. So let's line up those notches. You could pin it too, right? I find pinning these kinds of things though, you might feel a little hemmed in as you're sewing, like it's almost harder and you're getting lots of tucks. That's why I don't. But you know, you can. There we go. Yeah, welcome, Kathy. All right, so double check you have no tucks. Double check, no tucks. Just some needle holes from someone who didn't read the directions. I don't know who that was. All right, so now I'm going to trim this down so that we're going to do our binding seam soon. So I'm going to trim this edge. Well, let's do our flange first. I mean our armholes. So I have our armholes here. We have front and back armholes, and they are very, very similar to one another. So again, I'm going to notch the back. So I'm just going to put a double notch there so that we know that that's the back. And so we're going to give ourselves a left and a right, and a left and a right, like that. Methodical. All right, and so this is kind of interesting how this is constructed. I am so trained to do things in the round that this one, I'm letting it go this time, and I'm gonna do the side seam after the sleeve. All right, so this is my front armhole. See that? Like that. And so we're going to attach it to this underarm seam here. I thought there were some notches. There are. Where's my notch? Is it on the other one? Did I just not get it? What the heck? Oh yeah, I did miss notching these. All right, let's put these back. That's the front and the back. Let's give ourselves a notch, right? We deserve it. Fun fact, if I had drafted this in a factory setting, they would never allow these two pieces to not be identical in a lot of factories. They would want the back and the front to be identical because they're too close. If they were really different from one another, that's one thing. But if they're really similar, they will make you redraft it so that they're identical. Same with the flange. And then you're kind of like in this struggle with the production floor going, well, yeah, but then it won't fit right. And they're like, yeah, but if you really want, like their argument is really sound. They're like, yeah, but if you don't want people to be confused on the sewing floor and you want it to be sewn correctly, then you need to figure out a different way for them to tell it apart and make it really easy. All right, so this is my back and that's my front. All right. All right. So I can't see my seam line, so I'm tempted to start from this side, but then I don't know where I'm starting from. So we're just going to take a chance and make sure that I'm sewing on my edge there. I'm hoping you line that up to the raw edge at here. I'm hoping I can line up the piece there. Because there's my notch, and it doesn't line up with that. Let's make sure before we get too far. It's supposed to, yeah, it does look like it just lines up there. All right. Okay, so there's some of my seam right there. So let's re-sew this from this side so that I can enclose that stitching line and so it won't show. And now let's see, does it show? Right there, just a little bit. I'm a little nervous. I don't want to do too much, you know? Have I made anything for my pets like hoodies? I've made dog coats, and I do have a stream on that. One of my dogs, he doesn't have a neck, let alone a snout, and his head's like a coconut. And Molly would be like, no. She's a good girl, though. All right, okay, so I got this one. You have to do this 4 times. So here's my back. All right, there you go. Lining up that edge there. I love cutting this off, so I'm just going to cut this one off too. Yeah, I copied a weird pattern. Someone gave us this little coat for him, and so I copied that. And I showed that on the stream, I'm pretty sure. But I know that Closet Core has a free dog coat pattern, and it's really similar to the one I did. My tip, I would say, is that now that we've used it, and we still use that, like I used it the other day because it got cold, and he was like, I don't know. I was like, okay, I don't want to carry you, so you're getting a coat. My tip is that if it's a boy dog, make sure that underbelly strap is well away from where they urinate. Right, Megan? Hi, Megan. Yeah, I totally stole that, though, from his sister. The people who adopted his sister call her Coconut Head all the time, and so we do that, too, sometimes, because he is definitely got a coconut head, and it's hard like a coconut. Like, I swear that he's just, like, yeah, all coconut. All right, I'm going to trim this down now, this armhole seam. We're going to bind it. I'm going to trim it down to 1/4. Get rid of all this uneven stuff now. That made me a little nervous there. We're going to clip the curve too. You actually wouldn't have to, though. I'll show why. Oh, this is so long. This feels like I'm cutting the shirt, honestly. Ooh, it's coming together though. Look at that. See that? Let's look at it. Let's admire it. Yeah. Luke, I am your father. Look at that. It's totally a Jedi hood. That's my costume. Look, I can even maybe, you know, wear it like a little hood. Could I? Oh, my face cam's been off. When did my face cam go off? I love that none of you said anything about it. You didn't miss me. Good to know. Can I just do no face cam streams then? Does that mean I get to do that? When I showed Barbara the whole thing, my hair feels funny now. All right, so let's see. This is my back. This is the front. This is the back. All right. This is the back, right? Yeah. Okay. Okay, yeah. Right, April? Oh my gosh. See, that is such a good description of how you sometimes just, your mind leaps to what you think it should look like I did with this flange a little bit ago. That's so funny. There's some of my seam showing, a lot of it. See that? Hey Martina, how's it going? Nice to see you. I'm just resewing it to incorporate that. Okay, that's not my exposed one. All right. All right. One more, and then we're going to sew our side seam and bind. You guys stay for the binding because I'm going to make it look nice and fun and easy. And it's really the best part of any project, in my opinion, is the binding. I'd like to make him another dog coat because it was so fun, but he doesn't really need one. I made him two. I made one from a fabric with Shiba Inus all over it because, you know, he's Molly's biggest fan. So he had to wear a coat that looks like her. And that's the one he wears mostly. And the other one, I use this really cool quilting technique where you cut up a bunch of squares in kind of three similar shapes, but they're all, you know, you kind of do them randomly. And then you know, like kind of switch around the piles and then you sew them back together and then you cut them back into squares. And so I did that on all this flannel I had. It was a really fun technique, but I think like because of the fact that I'm using, this doesn't feel right, but it is right. Okay. Because I was using the fabrics I was using, it looks a little too scrappy. You know, it turned out fine and it's cozy. It was a fun technique too. It's from this quilt designer named what's her name? Sukrita. Her Instagram is Root Connection, and her book has these really fun quilt designs in it. I've made a couple now. I love her use of color and fabric. It's very colorful, mixing of patterns. Chahonka. All right. Where are we at? Let's check it out. All right, so I still have to zoom on a little bit. All right, so here you have your flange, and you have, see, your underarm. Now we have an armhole that's, you know, higher than the one I showed you the other day. So do you bind this and then do the seam, side seam? You kind of have to. You can't do it in the round. I thought you sew the side seam and then bind it. How would you do that? Oh. Oh, I was picturing this differently in my head. Oh. I thought this binding, of course that won't work. I was thinking this binding goes all the way around this armhole. It doesn't. Yeah, I did. So right now, what I could do, oh, that's so interesting. So how would you attach your binding here? This is so interesting. Okay, so let me think about this. There's a few different things here. Oh, good, Sarah. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, in fact, we can bring it back down a little bit. All right, so that's so funny that there was something in the back of my head telling me something, but I knew it was one of those things where I had to go through the process. I didn't design this pattern, right? So I have to go through it to understand it, and then I'm like, oh, okay, it all clicks, right? So I was thinking that I was going to finish this whole edge in the round with binding, and that's not going to work. Well, it can work, but I would be, then this edge would be done, right? So if I did this whole edge, right? If I did this whole edge, I'd be leaving out this edge. Now, there's a lot of different ways you could do this, actually. You could have cut these double, sewed them right sides together, turned it along this edge, and then you'd have a clean edge here, and then you could just bind that all, right? That would be the easiest way to do it. But I didn't cut double of these, and we know we don't have enough fabric for that, right? So the other thing you can do is just overlock this edge right now. You can still bind it and then bind this separately. What I don't understand is how to bind this once it's attached to the armhole, unless I'm doing it in a circle. And maybe I did this out of order, but no, I did the flange. You do the armhole pieces. So that's interesting. So I need to figure out how I want to do this. So I'm going to, because I want this edge finished. I'm trying to separate how I would do this in the future from how I need to do it right now. I'm trying to get my mind to focus on how I want to finish it right now. I think the simplest thing at this point would be to bind from here down and then bind it in the round. If I bind this right here, down here, and then can I do that? Can I bind this in the round? So the problem with binding this in the round is that this little raw edge is all the way to here. So the seam line to this edge is down here. That makes sense? Yeah, I see what you guys are saying, but I don't, like, you have to think it through. So if I bind the whole flange edge, it leaves a raw edge right here. What I was thinking, Sarah, is what if I did this? I just want to see if it works. Because I can't bind this once it's attached. If I had sewn these two pieces together, bound it, and then attached it, like, I think that could work. So what I'm thinking right now is, what if I move this seam line over a little bit? Let's see. So if I want this raw edge to line up with that, I'd need to go like this. See that? I need to slide it over so I get a raw edge that's lined up. You know? And then I have a circle. But what if I took this off of here? Yeah, so what you could do, you could sew this piece at its sides, take it off, like pretend like it's off, right? Take these two pieces, sew the side seam, bind it, pretend like it's off still, finish this edge, sew your side seam, and then attach this piece on there in the seam allowance. Right, Nikki? So yeah, because I think, like, if this was attached like this, I bind it, I can't get to my seam line there. So I don't know. I don't know what Stephanie's saying, but yeah, so I think, like, I really want to do it the way it is in the instructions, but I don't think I can. I must have not. Yeah, so this edge, if you have this edge finished, and it's deep enough in there, you could just overlock it, right? It's not a big deal. You can overlock it. It's inside there. It's deep enough. It doesn't need to be bound. I'm going to bind it. So if I take this apart, I have to sew in my head for a second here. If I take this off and I sew this together here, and this is one little piece, and then I bind that edge. And so now I have a finished top edge, a finished side seam. I have a raw edge here. That's it. That's it. Okay. All right, so I'm going to just take out my seam right here. I think that'll work. Yeah, Amy, I am. You don't have to, but I'm going to. That doesn't make a difference. It's really rare that using a French seam will prevent you from sewing something the way it needs to be sewn. It can make it harder. I know that, but in this case, it's fine. All right, so we're just going to remove this little bit right here. Okay. And we're going to remove it down here too. I don't need to. I don't need to. I'm just going, yeah, I kind of do though. Order of operations. Because if I need to bind this up here, I need this seam up here sewn. I need this finished to bind that edge. But I can't sew the side seam here because this edge isn't finished yet. Let me see. That won't work, Stephanie. And I do it from the inside out. I don't need money, thanks, Sarah. I know how to bind, but that won't work. So you'd be left with an edge. I don't want to prove it to you guys because it'd be a lot of seam ripping. Well, let's go to the other side. I'll show you. So let's pretend that we bind this whole edge, right? It's finished. It's bound. So now you have this raw edge right here, right? And so then if we sew our side seam together, right? We have our side seam together. You can't bind that edge. There's nowhere to finish it right there. You don't have an edge to go off. And no matter how you sew your binding, if you go from the inside or the outside, you can't do that. So I think what I'm going to do, what if no, I don't want to do that either. If this was finished right here, these were separate. Sorry, you guys, sorry. I'm determined. If this was separate right here, I could set it in, but I'd have to do it at a point. And but then I could be able to do that. You know, okay, I have an idea. All right, I have an idea. All right, where's the binding? Let's do this. Yeah, I like to finish on the outside because I feel like I have more control, you know, like how you're doing that last stitch on the outside. I love binding. But for some reason, that's not going to work. I don't know what I missed. I feel like I must have missed something. I'm doing it in the same order. So I have an idea. This isn't probably how I would do it, like, but this is gonna work. And it's the simplest way to do it. All right, so I'm just piecing together my binding. So I have a nice long continuous piece. Get rid of this hunka here. It's always worth it. I know it's like an extra step, but it's just so nice when you have it to just draw off of and you don't have these weird short pieces. All right, I'm gonna put it on my machine rest back here. All right, so here's my plan. I'm going to bind these two pieces separately, these little armhole pieces. Yeah, and this I would only use 1 inch wide binding for usually, just so you know. We trimmed that edge, right? Yeah, we did. Okay, so I'm gonna do a 1/4 inch seam. It's a little awkward. I have this little loose piece here. I've, taken out the edge there. So if you haven't attached it yet, I would bind this edge first. Okay. I feel bad. I didn't actually go over much about this pattern today, and I'm sorry. No, you do that in the side seam. Where it is weird for me is that I pictured it in a continuous circle, and it's not. And the, so that just means you would just finish your flange. Like you just finish it like however you like to finish it. And you could do a French seam. You could do overlocking, zigzag, pinking shears, whatever. So, but I didn't go over like all the size options with this pattern. And the fact that Sewing in the City gave me this project, so I apologize for that. Like this is really awesome that she gave us this project to sew. We love stuff like that. I should have clipped that. I thought it was clipped already, but it was just my double notches that I had added. All right, so I need a little bit more space here. We'll just remove a little bit here. Yeah, I don't know if she'll watch, because I know the time difference is pretty drastic for her, but I'm kind of hoping she'll say, oh, this is what you were supposed to do. You know? Yeah, a lot of pattern instructions have you finish inside. That's a traditional way to do it. Nothing wrong with that, especially if you're good at sewing binding, right? All right, so I'm gonna, how's the camera angle? All right. I just made my binding narrower. That's what I was doing by trimming off that long edge. Because when you're just going to the inside, you really don't need the full width. So let's trim off this excess here. All right, and so now I can just sew this back to this edge here. See? All right, and so now, except for my messy threads here, geez Louise, Jeremy, what the heck? Got all these messy threads here. Where's this thread at? Where's it at? Oh my gosh. These are just my threads from taking out the seam. Here we go, here we go. There they are. Because I didn't trim them. I immortalized them. Okay, that I can kind of deal with. All right, so let's do our other side. Now we have a plan. We got a plan. So this is what I mean by I'm not sure how I can do the binding of this edge right here without it being free. That's what I'm trying to say. Because if it's already attached to the seam, I don't think I would be good enough to do that, honestly. Maybe I should try it, but I would need like an edge to like grab it with. All right, so let's clip it this time before we understitch it. All right, Nikki, see you later. Thanks for coming. Have a good one. The one with the most options wins, right? That is kind of true. The more choices you have, right? Oh, wait, let's trim this down. Trim it down, trim off that like 3/8. I'm not even trimming 3/8, but you know, make it work here. Wrap around. I'll fully finish one armhole so you can see the whole process. Just especially if you have to dip, if you have to take off or something. I need a little bit more leeway here. I'm just taking that seam off. All right, trimming off that excess binding there. And now I'm gonna reattach it to the armhole. Let's make sure I got rid of my little threads here first this time though. Stop being so sloppy. All right. All right. All right, so now we're back on track. And we're going to bind this whole seam here of the flange. And then we do our side seam, and then we're done, except for the hem. Oh, that started, right? Is that on like cable, Sydney? I'm intrigued by it. Are you enjoying it? What do you think? Hi, Angela. How's it going? I didn't see you here. Oh, nice. That's a good plan, Sarah. All right, so let's bind this. Since we're just binding the edge, you can start on either side of this because there's no right or wrong side of your binding. I do wish I could see maybe I'll do this. I'm going to sew it like this so I can see my stitch edge so I can make sure none of my seams show. All right, so we're going to attach the binding here. You guys are really tolerant of my camera being terrible. All right, and so gently pull your binding when you're doing it. Not always, but for this you would. You don't want to pull it if you're binding a neckline and it's going flat to the inside. You actually want a little slack, and I have a video for that if that doesn't make sense or I explain it. Because binding a neckline is kind of tricky, depending on how you're doing it. But something like this, where we're just binding it to itself, and it's on the edge like this, rather than it going to the inside or the outside. Oh, you're watching it on YouTube? All right, look at my binding right there. It's a little narrower. I do kind of need the full width, but I can kind of short myself some seam allowance. I wonder if binding this edge, this is one of the reasons why I thought I was bound and it's not. I'm kind of disappointed. I got so hyped on the binding. I thought, oh, I wonder if that's one way to make the shoulder be like more strong, you know, and stand up better. All right, so like I said, I kind of said at one point, now you don't actually have to clip that edge if you don't want to. You do kind of want that seam allowance pressed towards the body. So in a way, maybe clipping it would be a good idea. But because the binding is on it, you know, like this, it doesn't really need to fold back on itself, except that you're pressing the seam allowance one direction. So I would just pick what you want, you know. I get so blindfolded. Ooh, I don't know, Martina. Oh, man. I've definitely taken my eyes away too much at times and gone, whoops, I should not have done that, you know. Is the camera moving after I adjust it? Is that what's going on here? It needs to be right there, but then it would be in front of the face cam. All right, so I'm going to use my awl. And I just pull we don't need this binding to look great. It's on the inside of the garment. But if you want it to look great, you want to go do practice, pull this little folded edge just past that stitch line. And then if your stitching is to the right of this original seam line, it'll fall on top of the binding, right? It'll land right on top of the binding. Did I just learn how to bobbin? Oh, wow, Dylan. Yeah, I know what you mean. So because this is a curve as well, you kind of want to make sure you're pulling it. You don't want to get like a little bubble on this side and it not be flat. You also don't want to accidentally put a bubble in it. So if you like right here, this thickness with that bound seam, I'm going to trim that way down. You can trim it down past where it needs to be, and it'll be a little easier to fold the binding around it. Because it's so thick, you need a little less width, because the thickness is going to have to be accounted in that total measurement that the binding has to wrap around. Not to get too mathy. So how many of you are making Mercer tops? I know a couple of you said that you bought it, and maybe folks can't watch live, I know that. Right, Ray? Exactly. I had to read that a few times to understand it. What is the usual seam allowance? Ooh. It was 5/8 for this pattern. Yeah, there's no usual, honestly. A lot of home sewing patterns are 5/8 is their standard in the United States. And I feel like in a lot of European brands, they're 3/8. But the seam allowance, it really should be dependent upon the pattern piece that you're sewing, rather than it being the like one width for the whole, pattern. Did I already go past that thickness? Oh, I did. Okay, must not have been as troublesome on this side. So you obviously don't have to bind this edge, right? You could have just overlocked it. You're like waiting, tapping your foot, waiting for me to do the next step. All right. All right. So that's one. And see, now we have the bound edge there. Yes, it's not on the edge there, but I think that looks a little cleaner. Except that it's a little puckery. Hi, Lonnie. Silly work stuff. Oh, your directions, whatever you're making, they must state the seam allowance. It might be written on the pattern pieces. What was your question, Lonnie? What foot am I using again? I'm just using the standard one that comes with my machine. I know what you mean, Amy. All right, so now I'm going to do my side seam. And I'm going to press, let's see, which way do I want that seam allowance to go? So it's going to go towards the body. At least up here, it's the path of least resistance. So let's look at it on the inside. Look at that. Oops. So look at that. See, it wants to go that way because it is a pretty heavy seam. I don't think I'd fight that. And down here, it's going... It's kind of like right here at this bottom, it is going up. And I think when this is sewn in a circle, let's zoom out a little bit. Because we're way zoomed in. Okay. Let's just think about the physics of this. So if this was, let's look at it inside out. Because sometimes seam allowances, they kind of change when they get to where they're going and they want to flip a different way. So on this side, it wants to push down. So maybe we'll just tell it on this side to do the same thing. I clipped my binding to be in line with it like this though. Look at that. Look how much this is such a good example. Like, look at that. How much that sticks out. Pretty much this edge of the side seam is almost lined up. This is a little longer here. I admit that, right? But when this pushes down, look where this point ends up. Look at how far inside the garment it is. Gotta be careful with how you clip things. All right, so we're gonna do our side seam. I'm just kind of checking it out, see what I might end up having to deal with. So I think it's gonna be fine. Let's get all these little threads out of the way. I'm gonna do it right sides together, or wrong sides together, sorry. And I'm gonna press my binding up. I'm not a fan of the fact that I have a seam going straight through my armhole, you know. But sometimes unique patterns, you got to do something new, you know, or different. My side seam got a little off there, so I'm just going with a straight line. Straight lines are always great, right? Looking like your binding is inside. Oops, let me trim this. I'm gonna trim this down a little bit because look at that, I have this little jiggity jog here. So because I have this seam going straight through my armhole, I'll probably top stitch it down once I'm done to kind of make sure I get it lined up. All right, so let's get rid of this. I want to make sure like what's happening on this side. So when I sew this, is this like, do you stitch through the flange? Really? That's so thick. The binding makes this so thick. Oof, maybe binding isn't a good choice. Oof, we'll see. It's iron. When in doubt, just go and iron for a little bit. Look how nice that looks though. Wish I had enough fabric for the binding. I would have probably for this little piece, and that's really all that the pattern called for, because I was mistakenly thinking it was for this whole armhole. And I knew I didn't have enough for that, so I could have had matching binding. Come on, iron, heat up. I need to do a better job. This is pretty thick right here. What would I do differently? I kind of like the idea of this being faced right here. I think this point right here, this angle is really important to this pattern. But I can't help think about if it were rounded, maybe I could set it in like a sleeve and even clean finish it. But not with this little guy here, you know? Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, hammering it. Yeah, no, I think the hammer is a good idea actually. it's very, very thick right there. Maybe we could grade the seam allowance a little bit. That's a lot. It's hard to grade it because it's binding, you know? It's not actual layers of seam allowance. It's binding. Hi, Eliza. Oh, how are you doing? Binding is, I don't think of binding as holding pieces together. I think of it as finishing it. I guess you could bind to hold things together. All right, I'm gonna get my hammer. And a mat. It makes such a big difference. It's kind of amazing. It does get my stuff dirty though. I should put a cloth in between it. All right. Usually I, need the hammer for the hardware. All right, so I really want to make sure that this is lined up well. I'm kind of thinking about this little, see that little raw edge there? Inside here. I'm not going to fold down the corner because it'll just make it thicker there. All right, so hoping that this on the right side. There we go. It wasn't hard to sew through, at least. I'm kind of curious what's this going to look. It's a art gallery. Yeah, so I didn't get it quite lined up, but I don't think I'm going to monkey around with it. See it right there? All right, and so then this is the... All right, Delwyn. Oh. Yeah, I heard your lockdown's ending tomorrow, right? Good luck. I have an anvil, but I find it like kind of slippery. It's cute too. Busiest knot. All right, what am I looking at? This is my front, right? I'm going to press this seam allowance towards the back, and I'm just going to stitch it down in the width of the binding here. Delta's in New Zealand. They are about that early YouTube life, I guess. I am very flattered that they even consider watching at whatever hour it must be. So yeah. And I follow Procreate on Instagram, and so they said that. They said something about their lockdown ending tomorrow. That's how I knew that. All right. What do we think? Oh, wow, Terry. My anvil, I would never have bought something like that. Like, they gave it to me in a needle sharp box, and it's adorable. I just find using the mat to be a little bit more stable for me. It's looking cute, though. Right? You know what I want to do right now? I want to sew across this bottom, just in case. I know people are probably going to leave now that they know how to finish that, but I want to remember to do this right here on camera. I'm just going to put a little stitch across the bottom so that it doesn't flip up like that, you know. I think that might help a little bit. I have this one thread here. It's kind of irking me. This one right here. And it's the tail of my back stitch. All right, so we're gonna just go across that. You could do a bar tack too, but I don't have a machine with a zigzag set up. Okay, one more. Really? Are you, April? That makes me happy because I feel like it's going to be one of those things where it's like just a few people, but it would make me feel good to do. Yeah, I think I would actually even have classes or something. What's a brother 371 HD and hates thick? Yeah, some machines just don't like thick stuff. But like, you know, each machine has its good side and bad side, doesn't it? I'm trying to reach out and do this. So I'm not sewing blindfolded. I'm seam ripping blindfolded. And I'm sorry I'm taking so long to do this. Now that I have a plan though, it'll go faster on this one. I did double stitch this down though. All right. My dad has a few anvils, but he does blacksmithing. I saw this antique one for sale on Etsy. It was beautiful. It had all this detailed, like, it was old, really old, and it had all this detail on it, like flowers and stuff. It was pretty neat. I was like, you don't think you'd like this, Mom, right? And she's like, oh, don't buy that, but God, it's cool. I used to have a console. I loved that thing. It was great. All right. Did I do both sides? Right? All right, so we're going to bind this little edge. Better not run out of binding. This is the only time I bind from the right side to the wrong side is when I'm doing it when it's going all the way to the inside. And you don't want to pull your binding when you're sewing it like this. You just want it to be relaxed. What do you sew, Sarah? And, oh gosh, you guys chat a lot. $2.50 an hour, they'll be, oh my gosh. I'm really sorry to hear that. Really sorry to hear that. And April, what do you sew? You have a lot of machines, Terry. Oh, you're a horseshoer. Are you really a farrier? That's pretty cool. How awesome. We had a mobile farrier that used to come to our farm, and I would kind of lurk nearby because I love that kind of stuff. That's not a job I would actually ever want, and I'm really, really good with animals. But his whole setup was incredible. It was this, you know, it was like basically a mobile workshop. All right. Fire hose is some really weird stuff. All right, now I'm going to understitch this. I mean, I think my first tip to anyone production sewing would be stop using pins and stop using an iron. Start there. Not that you guys are doing that, but that would be if anyone wants a quick tip. Start there and get good at that. All right, let's trim off the quarter. Yeah, I think it would be fun to also, or just like kind of cool to, if I had some sort of class type of thing, I would probably even have people give me examples of their stuff. Like that would be really fun to consult people on production sewing, like, you know, like give me your project and let's do it. Yeah, I would love to do that. But nobody probably needs that kind of thing. Marine canvas, boat covers, individual. Oh, okay. Well, are you doing... Oh, wow, Sarah, that's crazy. You do all that? All right, we'll start there. I follow someone, I don't know how I followed this person on Instagram. Like, they must have done something, and I thought it was, like, they were probably shared by someone. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And I started following them, and I love what they do. They make and sell bags, but I have to tell you guys, just between you and me, I'm not going to tell you who it is because I don't want you to like hate me. It's not probably anyone you've even heard of, but I want to unfollow them because it stresses me out that she uses 50 million binder clips every time she sews something, and she uses a home sewing machine. And it's none of my business. It's freaking none of my business. But, you know, she's selling bags and selling them really nicely made. She's an excellent sewist. And, but she's using a million binder clips and a home sewing machine and ironing. One day I was like, let's just look at the price of her stuff. And I was just like, well, first of all, she has a pretty decent price on her things, but it's still not enough for how she's sewing it. And she could, if she got rid of all that and she started sewing faster, she'd be making more money. She wouldn't even have to raise her prices, you know. But some people don't want to do that. And I just don't think she's making enough money. Even though her price point, it's not a price point. It's actually a decent price for her bags. It's not enough for how she's sewing them, unless she's living somewhere where she has no overhead or something. Or she doesn't have an office. So, all right, so we have that done. Now we want to sew the seam back on. I can't keep up. Oh yeah, Libby, that sounds good. That's a good plan. That's the other thing I think of is get rid of everything around you and set up your, like I always had a cart, and the cart didn't work for Rayanne. She didn't like sewing that way, but she had her own system. She had a bookcase and the way she set things up. And you know, you spend a half hour getting it all ready, making sure all of your findings are cut, or that you can just cut it on the fly. Like she had a little tiny cutting mat, and it was taped to her machine because that was faster than pre-cutting everything. And it was really nice when she did it that way, because then we had one less bin holding that junk, you know? All right, so we've reattached these. I'm going to trim this, pre-trim this edge down a little bit because it's much thicker, right, because of the binding. I just cut in. You see that little whoop? That was pretty drastic, but hey. Yeah, underbidding the job, maybe just because you want to do it. I'd have done that for sure. Yeah. I think once you can get to a point where you can pick your customers, it makes a big difference if you're doing custom stuff. And the thing is, you guys, like, everyone feels like a snail. I would be like, oh, I'm doing so good. Like, these came together so fast today. I sewed all these under my time. And then I would have, like, one that would have everything go wrong on it. And I couldn't, like, toss it and start over, which sometimes is just, like, the fastest way to cut your losses at that point is just to throw it away. Or we had a naughty bin, and the naughty bin we would look at like once a year and see like, all right, can we fix any of these things? Would someone want this because this fabric is really sought after? But you know, I would, you know, be doing so good and like, oh great, this is great. And then I'd have that one naughty one, and then I would be like, I have to actually see this through because the fabric, it's the last one of its fabric, you know? So it's just one of those things where you're like, great, I'm going so fast. Oh, shoot. Now I am stuck in molasses, you know? So, oh, nice, Elena. Yeah, I had a little bit of confusion on how to do something. I had to figure it out. We're still here. I'm still hungry. Ray. Am I making my own binding? Some binding sewing inside and some outside. I don't know what that last part means, but I did make my own binding this time. Yeah, I cut it yesterday. I don't know if I cut it with you guys though. Let's see, do I need to trim that down anymore? I already trimmed it to 1/4. I don't like it when I've already pre-trimmed an edge because I tend to not be as accurate as I could be, because this should be trimmed down a little bit. It's not changing the width of the garment or anything like that or the measurements, but I don't want my binding to be too slack on there. Oh yeah, Sydney. That's just how it is, right? I do that all the time off camera. I'll be like, okay, I just need to finish this little project for the house. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, this is turned into a nightmare, you know? Like the top I'm wearing, I didn't even tell you guys, I'm wearing a March top by Helen's Closet. I went to sew this and record a video, and I did something weird on it. Nothing weird. I didn't do something weird on it. I put the interfacing in the wrong spot. That's what I did. And so I couldn't use it. So I was like, great, now I need to just either finish it and wear it, and then I'll have to cut a whole nother one out if I want to do this video, blah, blah, blah. But then I noticed that it doesn't fit me right, and so I had to do all these fit changes. And so I spent my entire Patreon, I think on Saturday or yesterday, tearing it all this part because the neck went up here. It was like up here on me, and then the back I had to pinch it. Oops, I was about to understitch this. Oh, she's doing pretty good, Eliza. She's had some really crazy things happen since moving there. Like they got broken into while they were sleeping in bed. So someone came in and, yeah, I don't want to talk about it. And they were fine and everything and slept through the whole thing. They took her roommate's purse. But, yeah, things like that, you know. But she's coming to visit us, you know, in November, not just me. But she's coming to visit in November. I'm pretty excited about it. The longest it's been since I've seen her. Oh, that's interesting, Libby. Is there a way for you to simplify the details or do just those production style, or maybe do those at a time where you're getting something out of it, like watching a TV show or watching something instructional, so you don't feel like, you know what I mean? Hey, Dar, how's it going? Ah, I like that goal, April. I think if you're going to do something like that with custom sewing, though, you don't have to worry about production too much, because you're probably going to be doing one of a kind, right? Yeah, right, Eliza. Yeah, and if you're not going to be doing production style, I would be easier on yourself, be gentler, because probably if you're commanding a really high price, unless you're designing it and then selling it and you want that finishing to be really, really nice and you're going to do a bunch, then yeah, I could see how the production stuff would kind of be helpful a little bit. But if you're like, oh, I am for hire, yeah, you just need to be efficient with your time, and that just takes practice, because every project might be a little different, and it's really hard to get good at something unless you get to do that one thing over and over and over. And that's what it takes. Repetition. It's really hard for folks to want to cut out scrap fabric and practice something over and over again. But I'm going to tell you, it makes the absolute biggest difference. Hopefully it will finish looking balanced at the end. I mean, honestly, like, I think the binding is overkill on this. I like that it's nice and finished on the inside. It looks nice, right? But it's not probably how I would sew this. I don't know what you mean by balanced on the balance. I don't think of balance typically with binding. But what do you think? I mean, the binding could be sewn better. And it's really hard for me to match this seam right here, given all that I have going on right here. So I'm just kind of being nice to myself on that part, because I really made that a challenge for myself with all that binding. Yeah, less stressful, exactly. And I'm going to tell you what, you guys, like, I've done a ton of custom stuff as far as having clients. And I'm going to tell you, you're going to have good projects and you're going to have bad projects. You're going to have good clients, you're going to have bad clients. And that is just the truth. And you're going to have weeks where it's all going to go together really well. And then you're going to have that one day where you're like, why do I do this? I was having that this morning because for some reason someone kind of came at me in an Instagram comment today, and I was like, what the heck? Are you pitching for a fight about this? Because I'm not here to fight. And then someone else was in my DMs giving me an idea for something I should do. And I was like, I just did that. And it was available. So I was like, I'm not feeling too happy with y'all right now. Why do I do this? I'm hardly on Instagram. Now I know why. So I have this seam lined up, but it's so thick that it's going to be really hard for it to stay lined up when I'm at the final bit. So like I said, I don't think this is how I would do this. Like, if I sewed this again, I would do this in a different way. But doing the binding wasn't the right finish. I would actually figure out a way to clean finish this using the flange. That's what I would do. I love it too. In fact, there's, you know what, you guys? Hi, Susie. How's it going? I like the enthusiasm. Nice to see you. Oh, I got an email from the local David's Bridal, and they were like, hello, we have a position available for a alteration specialist. I thought that was really interesting. I wonder how I came on their radar. You know what I mean? Because it's not like you would Google local sewing people and find me. I'm not, like YouTube isn't listed anywhere. Yeah, right, Libby? Yeah. I think I'm missing some things, but I think some of you are just talking to each other. All right, last seam, and then we are a hem and a button. That's it. Let's iron this and hammer it. This camera might be drifting too. Looks good from this side, doesn't it? It's the next seam that's a problem. I could have pressed all this, like this, all this binding, and it would look probably a little nicer too. Wake up, iron, wake up. I think this top would be really cute and maybe a clear, I keep saying clear, like a chiffon, a really crisp chiffon or organdy. Organdy is what I'm thinking of, right? Organdy. Fabrics get different names over time, you know, and so I think, like I saw someone post that they made a dress out of scuba. I was like, wait, I thought scuba was that really thick stuff, because the dress looked really cute. Where's my hammer? I have it resting against my dress form. Yeah, bridal alteration. I know. First question, do I have to deal with the outside world? You know, like, do I have to deal with the clients? Makes a big difference, dang. Not funny. Oh, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Work has been a little nuts, you're a little squirrely. Hang in there. Are you ironing on your rotary mat, Libby? Is that why you're asking that? Because I don't know the answer to that. Mine don't warp unless I accidentally, because I was storing mine underneath the wool mat, and it was warping. I didn't realize it. So I was ironing on top of it, and the steam goes right through the wool mat. Okay, Sydney, see you later. Oh, Eliza, well, it's nice to see you. Thanks for stopping by. Hang in there. I know it's probably really busy for you. All right, so I'm feeling my thicknesses here, trying to get them all lined up. But I have a feeling, don't let that presser foot get stuck under the binding edge. I was going to say something earlier, and I can't think of what it was now. Oh, I know what I was going to say. When you're talking about clients, like I also think that there is that, well, that one is a little better. There's always that one client where everything goes wrong with, no matter how hard you try, even stuff beyond your control. That is honestly the worst. And it would also happen at Chicken Boots with there'd be that one customer, and everything would go wrong. Like they would order the last of a fabric, and then we would be like, great, cool, that fabric's done. And then we'd look at it and we'd be like, oh my gosh, there's a fabric flaw on this. And we can't get around it, and we can't fix it, and blah, 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 and we can't resew it. And their heart's set on it, and it's going to replace the one that was stolen from her daughter, who's going through cancer treatment, and she's been bringing it with her every day and to all of her treatments. And then you figure out something. So then we would be like ordering a quarter yard from some fabric store, trying to get it to us fast, recutting it and sewing it. And then something happens with the shipping. You know, it's like you have those and you're just like, I'm really sorry that the universe picked you as the customer where everything's going to go wrong on. I don't know what to say, you know? And you had some that are really understanding, and some that people who aren't, and especially like when it's your fault, like it's even worse, you know, but there's times where a lot of those things aren't your fault, and you're just like, wow, how can I make this right? And, you know, and it's just how it has to be. You got to kind of let it go, but it does keep you up at night, you know? Oh, really? Oh, that is weird, Libby. All right, so I keep changing the brightness and the zoom. It's looking so cute, isn't it? All right, I'm gonna hem it, and then we're gonna sew the button on, then we're gonna try it on my dress form. Because that's where we're at, we're done. Doo-doo-doo-doo. I'm gonna split the difference with the hem. It's a 5/8 inch hem, but I'm gonna do 3/8, 3/8. I like my hem to be filled with fabric. Cringy, yeah. I mean, that actually did happen. Yeah, it was a really heartbreak. We had a few heartbreaking stories too. That one was just so like, what the heck, you know? And it had a lot. It had a lot more to it. The story. And just so y'all know, the daughter is fine. You know, it was like the last I had heard, which was really awesome. And I met them at a show, and she even brought me and I saw her at the next show, and she was like, "This is my wristlet, and this really got me through." And you know, like there was really great aspects to that story. It was pretty cool. You know, then you have people that are very much not understanding. So it does look a little 50s. You don't think it looks 80s? I think when you see it on, you're gonna think it looks 80s. Let's see, this seems pressed more like this way. I'm definitely rushing this right now, and I can feel it. Sorry. Yeah, serging. Debbie, I don't know if you've been watching since the beginning, but I think you should serge it for sure. Because I was mistaking how it went together in my head. I thought that you finished the armhole with binding. You don't. You only finish the bottom part with binding. The little part that is the, it finishes the armhole on the side right here. In the pattern, you're only finishing this right here with binding. This seam right here, absolutely do serging because it'll be less bulky. So cute. All right, let's get the button out. You don't get to see it on my dress form. I know, right, Angela? It's just really thick. It's really thick. So yeah, it needed it. I'm gonna do a few buttons, or a few stitches. Put my button on. I have this little tiny dot of Sharpie on my thumbnail. Now it's getting dark again. It's been so rainy here. So I'm not complaining. It's a good thing. All right. The thread is staticky. Why'd I pick the needle with the smallest eye? I'm going to pick this chonker because I deserve a chonker needle, you know? Oh my gosh, Libby. Yeah, you know what though? I will say we had that happen a lot too, where people are like, "Oh my gosh, don't worry about it. This is a gift. They don't even know what fabric I'm picking. It's okay, you're out of it," you know. And you're like, "Oh shoot, we should have just told them. We should have just like copped to it right at the beginning." But we would also tell ourselves like, "You know what? We should just tell this person what's going on. Maybe they don't really care." And it ends up being a huge kettle of fish. So I say you really just got to go with the original job, you know? All right, so I want that right there. Exactly. There definitely becomes a point where, and this is going to sound kind of callous, but you kind of got to get to this point where at a certain point, people assume you should be grateful for every sale, and you totally are, you know, but not if it comes at the price of selling a little bit of your soul. And there are certain customers who would really like you to sell a little bit of your soul on every transaction. And that's not what the point of it is. And so I think that's something really good to remember, because there were quite a few customers that were kind of hard to deal with. And we were, you know, really gracious, and, you know, they demand discounts and whatever. And it's like, I don't give discounts, you know, stuff like that, whatever the story is. But, the whole idea that you should be grateful for every sale, and that they're not actually saying that, but they're treating you that way, that's not okay. It's not okay, because you're not their personal sewist. Unless you are, then it's different. But you can have boundaries around that too. And this is, like, I remember only one time I had to say this to a customer, because they were really, I hate to say it, but they were just totally nuts. Like they were not there. It was very crazy, and it was definitely a bullying technique that tactic that they employed to get what they want, right? And I just was like, at the end of the day, we're only talking about knitting accessories, and it's not that important. Because I was getting pretty heated over it. And I will often tell people, you know, like if it goes too far, I will say, you know, we are living in a world where we are making bags for knitters. We are not solving climate change. We aren't rescuing people. We're not feeding people. We're not ending world hunger. We're not doing anything that makes a difference, right? And I know there's a whole argument, knitting is very great, whatever, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's just a knitting bag. And that's what you kind of have to tell yourself sometimes, because people are getting upset over something, and I would be like, you know, I'm just really thankful that I don't have to haul water on my head from the creek up to my house every day, and you're worried about a knitting bag that didn't have the bird facing left when it faced right. You know what I mean? Like, it's all perspective. So you have to kind of soothe yourself with that, you know? But it would be, sometimes it was very, very rare. It was maybe like once every year and a half, you'd get that one customer where you kind of had to go, we need to cut them free because they are a drain and they aren't respecting how much work this is. And they don't want to be cut free. They think they have a good thing going with you. I was kind of a hard ASS anyway. I think you guys know that. But because I had that perspective, I'm like, it's just a freaking knitting bag, lady, get over it. I'll just go somewhere else. I'm like, I hope you do. I didn't say that, but Rayanne would just be like, holy heck, this has escalated really quickly. I'm like, yeah, it has. All right, here's the inside. I do think the binding was a little extra. My binding, look at that torquing. I wasn't being very careful there. I was kind of rushing it at that point. The facing looks really nice. There's the front. Right, Beverly? It is. It's a good measure. Being thankful. Thankful and appreciative of the world we live in and how lucky we are. All right, let's press her a little bit and then we'll put it on the dress form. But yeah, just remember that there are people there that want you to sell a little bit of your soul. And that's not your business. That's not what you're selling. You know? They don't get that. They don't deserve it. Those are the people that honestly should probably be hauling water just to get a little perspective. All right, I'm just gonna press this a little bit. Looking good. I'm so glad that Sewing in the City sent this project. This has actually been really fun to sew, and I love this fabric. This has really grown on me. You know, like you see these prints in a fabric line, and they're kind of like the blender prints, which I love a good blender. You know that. I am such a big like Carolyn Friedlander fan, and Debbie Schmidt and stuff. I love those little prints. But like this one I wouldn't have thought of for a blouse, and I think it's fantastic. This is where an ironing board would be so handy. I kind of want the underarm here to get a little bit of a press. There's a lot going on right there. So remember how we talked about it would be kind of a fun idea to make the inside of the underside of flange one color, and same with this. I think that's, so you can you see that now? Like what if this was this blue and so is this? I think that'd be pretty neat. All right, just let's press this a little bit. It's looking already so much better just by pressing. Steaming. I keep getting wrinkles on the other side though. It's my binding for my quilt. I'm going to try using crosscut. Okay. Poke that in there while I iron this. And now put this in here. This is the front. All right, we'll press the seam allowance this way. Ooh, I'm kind of excited about doing the ideal bag. Oh no, wait, am I doing that this Saturday or am I cutting the Fairfield? Oh shoot, we should talk. I think I'm doing the Fairfield this Saturday. Shoot, that's funny. I did that because I was thinking it'd be better if they were in order for folks. And more people can come on a Saturday, and that would be the plaid matching. All right, one last little touch, I promise, and then we'll put it on the dress form. Right here, I want to get rid of this wrinkle right here. Okay. Oh, the tag. That's, we can do that. Right. Yeah, but those folks are sneaky. They really, you really don't know what their motive is that for a while. I think I could do this, right? I could stick it under, because I stitched this down, now I don't have enough space to just like slot it under there. I could do this though. He doesn't understand. Does he do something that maybe he would help him relate to it? My husband's making my parents a knife for Christmas. He's been getting back into woodworking. And, you know, he could buy a handmade knife from somebody, but yeah. You're going to embroider that and put it on your wall. Yeah, right? Like, I also, Libby, like, I would take it to the nth degree sometimes. Because sometimes you're like, I should make, the customer is not always right, by the way. And anybody who says that, it's kind of toxic. I agree, the customer should get a lot. But there's a limit. I would sometimes also go as far as figuring out how much I made on that item. So say like the clear wristlet. Well, the clear wristlet wasn't a good example. That wasn't a story of someone who I wanted to let go at all. But you know, if I looked at it wholesale, I think I made like $3.29 on it. So yeah, people thinking you make a lot of money too. It's like, well, I don't though. And so retail, I made a lot more, but it had to make up for the wholesale prices for me. Ooh, the back is so cute. This fabric cover is so hard to slide things over. So you can't judge anything until you get everything in the right spot. Okay, that's there. Oh, it is pooling a little bit in my back, so I may have to alter that for me. Let's move my chair. My big old bin of binding. Wait. What do you think? That's pretty cute. See that hip tilt? There you go, that's me. Like this shirt right here did that so badly. So there's a seam right here. And this is what I do is I do a dart right here, basically. So on the March top, I just took it out of the bodice so that then it would be, see, it would be level. It looks really cute. Look at that. Look at, you're fully covered in there. And so you know how we were worried about that dart? Look, see, it is gone. So I don't know if Barbara, you're still here, but you see that? You can't see all the way in here. The fabric is, you know, it definitely has a stiffness to it. Very fun. How would I get rid of this? This is me. It's not the pattern. This is my body right there. Yeah, the back closure looks so cute, doesn't it? I was thinking the same thing when I put it on. I was like, oh, that's so cute. Like from the back, this is a really cute little, these look so much further out than they do in person. In person, it doesn't look so prominent. I'm looking forward to trying this on. Yeah, very fun. All right. See, this top I'm not too sold on. I like the way it feels. There's a seam here, and I feel like in a solid, this would be a little more flattering. You know? Oh, yeah, yeah. If you have sloping shoulders, and I have very straight across shoulders. So this is why I probably wouldn't have picked this silhouette, because my shoulders are so straight across, you know? Oh, it's probably a different fabric and all the pieces together now, Ray. Yeah, Lynn, it really would. I mean, have you seen it on the model? It looks fantastic on her, and it's hard to tell if she has narrow shoulders, but I think she does. Or just more, not wide, you know? Mid-mo vibe. So how I would deal with this is, you know, you can pivot it out on the pattern all the way to the side seam. If any of you have this issue, since there's a seam down the center back, it makes it really easy. So before you've cut it out, you can slash on the pattern piece straight to the seam line, not all the way through. And then from the seam allowance up to the seam line, that little tiny bit, right? And now you've made it like this. And then you overlap it the amount you need, right? To nothing at the side seam. Like that. Tape it together, and then you'd have your new pattern piece. This is something I have to do on a lot of my patterns. See that difference? Yeah, it would, Susie, wouldn't it? So when it's an already made garment, sometimes what I'll do is I'll do back darts, and it helps a lot. It doesn't quite get rid of my hip tilt, but you can see that the darts would help. Having a dress form is really nice for this because obviously it's really hard to pin darts on your back. And if you were here when I got this dress form, you know how much I was so excited about looking at this area of my body. Let's see, look at that. I could put these darts in like that. Yeah, it would, April. That looks a little maternity on me, but I think that could be really cute, especially if it was kind of up high. Well, big thanks to Sewing in the City for the project. That was really nice, and it was really fun. You can see it looks. Doesn't it look like it's tilting up? But it's actually not. That's my back. So, all right. So I think what I had done is altered the calendar so that we were cutting the Fairfield button up on Saturday. So, yeah, I mean, you could put a cute little belt tied to the side. If this were just a little longer too. Yeah. Anyway, so if you guys are down for that, then we could do the ideal starting next Saturday. And then we wouldn't have to interrupt, because otherwise I'd have to do the ideal Saturday and then stop for a week and then do the Fairfield Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday. and then come back to the ideal. So that's what I was thinking. I'm going to do the Fairfield starting Saturday. That'll give you guys a week more to get fabric together and the pattern, because there's a lot of pieces if you guys are interested. It's a free pattern on my website. You don't have to sew it, but I'm going to. I want one. So yeah, this fabric's really cute. She got it from Minerva. These guys are in Florida, I think, though. Okay, good. Does that work for you, Sarah? I know you're one of the ones doing it. Okay, good. I know there's a lot of pattern pieces. Yeah, Terry, you've made a lot more than me. I have 3 to make right now. I'm just gonna make 1 on camera. Maybe. I mean, I could do production style, but I don't think I could get 3 done in 3 streams. But maybe I'll do the tower placket with you guys. So that'll be good. All right. Well, thanks for coming, you guys. I'm kind of hungry, so I'm gonna head out. But I had burned through all of my calories out of nerves with those 2 Instagram things this morning. Cool, Susie. Nice. I'm glad you'll be there. That's awesome. Yeah. I'll see a few of you on Saturday. All right, so 11 a.m. Pacific on Saturday. Right now, it's 2:30 p.m. my time. So that would be, like, what, 3.5 hours ago? 11, 12, 1, 2. Yeah. That's when I start every Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday. And, yeah. Oh, you kind of have old jeans. That's awesome. I love that. I don't know. A sandwich sounds really good, but I don't have a sandwich today. I can't remember what I'm having. My water dispenser broke, though, so now I'm using one of those big 5-gallon jugs, and I'm pouring it into each cup, which, you know, how dangerous that is. Thank you, Ray. Yeah, if you want to hit the like button, that's great. Share the stream with somebody. That's awesome. And I'll see you guys Saturday. Thanks again to Sewing in the City. This was the Mercer top. I'll try and add timestamps sometime soon. Oof. I'll try. All right. Bye, guys. Thanks for coming, and I'll see you guys soon. Where's the project on? Oh, there it is. Bye.